They're coming to get you, Barbara.
We found a lot of suspicious things out in that cemetery.
Malignant demons who issue forth from their graves in the dead of night to attack their victims and drink the blood from their veins.
You're invited to my party if the ghosts are waiting, so won't you join me?
Okay. Welcome, friends, cultists, family, once again to Vagrant Fear Discussions. With me today, I have Bridgett Robinson. She is a member of the local Des Moines Horror Club that was started a handful of months ago, almost a year now maybe, of which yours truly is also a member. But I spoke with her on her history and her long time, almost lifelong history and love of horror. So Bridgett, welcome to
Thank
Discussions.
you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you willing to talk about this. So you gave me a little insight, but why don't you start by telling us how you became involved in your love of horror movies, books, what have you?
Absolutely. So it started as a young child. I would be at my aunt's apartment watching Freddy Krueger in the dark, not scared. And I'm not even sure if my aunt even liked scary movies because most of my family were actually like, kind of scary, right? They didn't like the horror movies, they didn't enjoy those. But then most importantly, it was started with my mom. My mom used to watch these old horror movies, like these old monster movies, and just really sparked that interest on, okay, what is this all about, and it just grew from there because again, I knew that it wasn't real, and so it was very intriguing to me, that fact. I didn't have, again, any fear for any of the things that I was seeing, no matter how weird, or like, those 70s horror movies, like those
Oh,
really weird, like The House on the Left type of situations.
yeah,
Like those were really brutal back in the day.
yeah.
But she would watch those and watch old anime, and I just took to it immediately, knowing that that's what was what I was interested in. I was a passionate person about horror and Halloween and all of that stuff, and I just really had fun with it over time. And so that's what really sparked it, is that my mom, she started me off on that. And in middle school, coincidentally, that I was the only one that knew about rigor mortis. We had like these trivia times, right, where you'd get candy for answering the right questions. And the science teacher was like, "Hey, does anybody know what rigor mortis is?" And we would raise our hands if we knew the answer. I was the only one that raised their hand, and I was like, "Absolutely, I do know," just because of the background from the horror movies and all of that creepy stuff too. So that's kind of where it
Wow.
stemmed from. So it was really exciting. I mean, even talking about it now, it just brings up a lot of childhood memories of just like
Yeah.
chilling on the couch with popcorn and watching these horror movies with my mom. So
So
yeah.
okay, so you said in middle school you had the trivia that you won candy from rigor mortis, but you said at a young age, how old were you, do you remember, sitting in the dark at your aunt's place watching Freddy Krueger? How old do you
Um,
think?
quite honestly, like 5, 6 years old.
5 or
It was
6 years
pretty
old?
young. Yeah, I was pretty young.
Wow.
It was
And you
kind of
weren't scared?
surprising. Yeah, no, not even scared.
Wow.
Not even.
For a 5-year-old, that's, I mean, that's pretty crazy for you to at that young of age to realize, okay, this is just a movie, this isn't real, and not really be scared. I'm sure you were probably a little scared watching it, but just the overall, like, you didn't stay up for days thinking that he was going to get you in your sleep or anything like that.
No, absolutely not.
Wow.
It's nothing like today's, not a reflection of any today's children, but like it was nothing like that. And I think it was just in the era of the 80s where, that was, people just recognized, or kids even recognized, like, listen, this is not even real. So don't even worry about it. They're not going to come get you. You know what I mean? So is that sort of comfort, that cushion, of knowing, you know what I mean? Like this is just all fantasy, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's great. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna ask you how old you are, but based on what you're saying, yeah, I mean, it was a different time back then. We knew what was scared and we got scared watching, but once the movie was done, it was done. We were good,
Yeah, that was it. Yep.
and there wasn't any of this lingering like, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
But yeah, and then I don't know. Okay, you're still watching a lot of horror now, right? Is this still a lifelong?
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
okay, you brought up the horror of the 80s, which I there's a soft spot for late 70s, early 80s slashers for me, back when they still had a little bit of a story and it wasn't how many teenagers can we kill in 2 hours. How would you compare some of that storytelling, that fear creation of like the mid early to mid 80s compared to some of the stories now, like the Conjurings or the any of those style, you know,
Yeah,
big stream?
that's a good question. That's a good question because I think, in the 80s, it played on people's kind of personal fears, right? So things that could most almost definitely happen. Most specifically, what I'm thinking of is when I watched Candyman. Candyman was the most realistic, scariest movie to me, just because and I hate to say it, just because the projects did exist. Caprini Green did exist,
Yep.
right? And
Hmm.
so it was more real, whereas now there's so much more computer generation,
Yeah.
much more like not folklore, but like made up folklore that's put
Yeah.
into some of these, some of these storylines. So it's less likely that it's going to happen that some demon is going to show up in your house, unless
Right.
you're from a community or a cultural background where those things were real to those folks. Whereas the 80s, it was like, hey, we could be camping one day and some psycho just comes out of nowhere and starts
Yeah.
to kill people, right?
Oh
It's
yeah.
more realistic. It's more believable, we should say, than versus now. And with the CGI and all the computer
Oh yeah.
generated stuff, you know what I mean? It's
Oh,
less likely to happen. So, yeah.
I am so happy that you brought up the Candyman. That first movie was amazing, and I still love it. And I'm blanking on the actor's name. I'm really bad, but I'm the man who played Candyman. It was
Right.
so amazing at that, and
Mhm.
just it was creepy. And with
Yeah.
all, no spoilers technically here, but with all the bees and the hook and the, oh my goodness, it
Yeah.
really was. I agree. It was very gripping, and it was. I think what added to it, like you said, Caprini Green and the projects and everything. There's a very urban setting, which was already kind of pseudo, kind of a rundown, bad kind of place in its own right, and then you throw all this on top of it,
Yeah.
which it kind of played off of the whole you know, um, back in the day when it was fun. It's like, okay, we're at a party, whatever. Okay, we're gonna go shut you in the bathroom, and you have to say Bloody Mary in the mirror 3 times and see what happens. And that sort of that, like you were talking, the folklore, the legend. Those were the
Yeah.
kind of things that we did as kids to try and scare ourselves. And now here we go with the movies.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
so okay, over the years, and you have a son
Yep.
that
Yep.
you have
14-year-old.
also a 14-year-old, yeah, that you've also introduced the world of horror to. Did you start him at a young age, like your aunt and your mom did with you, or how did you bring him into the fold there?
Sure. So I always had it in the back of my mind that, you know what, I mean, the cutesy Halloween stuff, sure. You know what I mean? Like the smiling pumpkins, the kitty cats coming out of the pumpkins, things of that nature. It's all fine and dandy.
Sure.
But I knew, and I don't know how I knew, but I figured like just because of my background and kind of what he was exposed to already, he would take it a lot better than most children. So at about the age of 8 is when I started to introduce
Okay.
him to the concept of horror movies and the scary Halloween versus the friendly Halloween.
Yeah.
And it was the Babadook was when when he was first introduced to his first horror movie.
That was the first movie you showed him, was Babadook.
Yes,
Okay.
Babadook.
All right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but with me in the room, and just having the lights on, things like that, because
Sure.
you never know with children, kind of how they're going to react to that. And I didn't want him to be turned off by it. I didn't want him to be terrified by any of it. And I wanted to kind of, so to speak, ease him in, even though Babadook is probably not the best easing in
Yeah,
movie,
no,
you
I
would say,
I I
right?
eased my son in with Monster House.
Oh,
Good
okay.
good
Yeah,
fun,
that's a
good
good
fun
one.
animated. I like the story, but
Yeah.
he was maybe about the same age, maybe a little
Okay.
younger.
Yeah.
And it got to him. I remember him sitting on the couch and he was just glued. And if you guys haven't seen it, the house at one point eats a dog, and he's just like, "What? It ate the dog." And I'm like, so you took it up a few notches. I mean,
Yeah,
you
I would
weren't
say, yeah.
animated, you weren't slightly friendly. You just threw him in the mid range with
Throw 'em in the
Babadook.
pit, yeah, and
Wow, mom, good
I think
job.
even I think even before that, maybe it was the original It as well, so it's around the same timeline where yeah, I know, it seems pretty harsh, right? But I wouldn't dish out anything I wouldn't think that he would be able to handle,
Okay,
because, you know your children, right? And you kinda
yeah,
get that feel for, kind of what their fears are, what their apprehensions are, and so, yeah, those 2 movies most definitely at about 8 years old, and then next thing I know, maybe several months later, maybe upwards of a year, he was asking to watch Babadook again. So
wow,
that was an indication that, hey, he's just like me, where he's like, it's just a movie. It's interesting, right? There's so many different concepts in all of these horror movies that they can grip to and they can kind of conceptualize and kind of understand. And again, it's just all about, knowing that this is not real, right? And
yeah,
just reiterating the fact that this is not real. This is not going to happen. This is all for cinematic effects, things of that nature. So,
yeah,
yeah, so about 8 years old is when I introduced him, and ever since he's just taken off and just loves Halloween, loves horror movies. We've gone to several movies in theaters together to see
nice.
them when they come out. And then even for for Halloween this year, he went and put up 2 skeletons like they were crawling up the roof trying to get in the house. So I
Nice.
knew at that point, I was like, "Good job, mom," on the horror aspect. Like, you really did a
You
good
have raised
job.
him. Yep, you've raised him well. And
Yeah.
well, and to be honest, it sounds like he is fairly well grounded. I mean, he knows that, like you said, when you were younger, he knows that it's not real, that this wasn't, this is not a documentary he's watching or anything.
Right, yeah,
So he understands the concept of this is cinema, this is a story.
right,
And it
exactly.
didn't, and it hasn't like traumatized him or
Right,
affected his
no,
life
nothing, no.
or anything as we go.
Yeah, now
So,
documentaries are a whole 'nother thing, I'm on those too, but I don't think until he's ready, he can watch documentaries on his own. I'm not gonna
yeah,
introduce them, so
so no, but that's good. So yeah, it's just, um, yeah, just raising the kids that way. I mean, I love the fact that you were raised up with it. You've included him, and who knows? I mean, I'm not going to rush him or anything, but
right.
if mom becomes a grandma, let's hope that he raises his kids in that same vein, and you just have this whole lineage of horror watchers who watch it for fun. So
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what
so
it is, it's fun. It's
yeah.
such a thrill. It definitely is, yeah,
So, um, you said you were raised on your mother watched a lot of old time horror
right.
and that the old monster movies. Are we talking like the old Universal, like Bela Lugosi Dracula, or are we
Oh,
moving in?
absolutely. Yeah,
Oh,
Bela Lugosi
perfect.
all the way, Vincent Price all of the
Oh,
way. Yes, absolutely. She told me a story from when she was younger and how she saw the Wolf Man in theaters and how it
wow.
scared the living daylights out of her. And just to know like how the Wolf Man was then
Yeah,
versus what it is now, it's just kind of interesting to me that something so simple, even back then would scare anyone. And
yeah.
she remembers that to this day. So she would always watch Bela Lugosi, The Mummy, Frankenstein's Bride, all of the good oldies.
Oh, yeah,
And even to this day, I also just engage in those type of older, type of 1970s, 1950s type of horror movies.
yeah,
And it kind of brings me back to, hey, why would they think this is so scary? But then understanding at that time too that there wasn't a lot of cinematic advancement, and
yeah.
there was a lot of fear going on in the first place with War of the Worlds, you know what I mean, like things of that nature. So I kind
Right.
of gives me a new perspective on kind of what they were thinking at the time. But it's so nostalgic just going back watching those old horror movies or those old monster movies, more specifically, like I said, The Mummy, Werewolf, all of that good stuff. So
Yeah. Well, and it that is really good really good point. I mean, yeah, back in the 30s when Dracula, Frankenstein, the original Universals started coming out, yeah, there really wasn't a lot of special effects were not a big thing. I mean, if I remember right, I think in Dracula they used a possum as a rat. So I mean, it's just, silly little things. But yeah, I mean, and then how it changes all over the years. I mean, when's the last time you've gone back and watched Nightmare on Elm Street?
Oh, actually, I own that. It was probably about 2 or 3 Halloweens ago, actually,
Okay.
that I watched it. So, yeah, we've got a few of them. But yeah, it's just mind-blowing, like, okay, this is silly to the point, sometimes too, but, you still enjoy it regardless of how silly
Yeah.
it may be. It's kind of like those other monster movies, kind of like Godzilla, where they use like little, figurines
Mm.
to, emulate the monsters and things of that nature, or even the ones that my mom and I used to watch where they had the strings. You could see the strings on the monsters and things of that nature too. So
Yeah.
it's kind of funny in a sense, but still very nostalgic and very reminiscent of childhood for sure.
Yeah. You know, I am honestly, I'm really happy that I'm talking to you about this. Just you keep saying it brings you back to childhood. It brings all this back. So I'm sure through these movies, I'm guessing you had a decent relationship with your mom, with your aunt, because you shared these movies, and through that now you've got this relationship with your son, who I'm sure is probably showing his friends all this horror movie and that. Um, so yeah, I mean I mean, and it could be for anything, but you have this connection through family that you all enjoy this one thing, and it's really lovely to hear that you have this bond, and let's hope that this continues when your son becomes 16 or 17 and you know
Absolutely. I'm
really starts
hoping
kicking
so.
in.
It's kind of like a family tradition, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
perfect. So out of curiosity, you've watched many decades of different styles of horror movies, from the original old black and whites up to the more recent stuff. Is there is there a film, is there a horror movie that you think you can always go back and watch and always be entertained, always look at it the same way, or or do you not have that feeling about any particular one?
Well, that's a really tough question because there's a lot of movies that I enjoy in the horror film, genre, and I honestly I can't pin one down. I know there's one that really sticks with me. Again, like I said, the Candyman. But can I say it's my favorite? Not necessarily. I'd have to take some time to think about that because I've seen a lot of horror movies over time, and there's a lot of a lot of them that do stick with me, but I can't say that I have a favorite. Like they're all, I mean, there's some bad ones, let's be honest, right?
Oh, yeah,
But yeah, I can't say that I have an absolute favorite. I'd have to just like go through my collection and see,
yeah.
which one's like, oh yeah, I love that one most definitely. But I feel overall, I just have a love for the genre in general. There's not, again, I'd have to, dig back in the memory of which one in particular
Yeah.
stuck with me and is my favorite. But generally I like them all overall. So yeah, sorry I couldn't answer that
Oh,
question.
no, no, that's fine, that's fine. Do you find yourself gravitate towards a style, whether it be like a slasher or a psychological or anything like that?
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
have a do you have a style or a theme of horror that you seem to watch more than others?
Sure, yeah. So nowadays, the whole gore situation is just not my jam. When we talk about like Jason and Michael, yeah, those were interesting because I also learned the background of how they did some of those special effects too. And it's pretty funny because it's like I could do that at home. So I'm not really into the newer gore stuff because I feel like they go over the top. However, I'm more into the folklore type, the Japanese folklore,
Mm,
the Dutch folklore as well. What was it? Samar? Is that Samar? That's one of the ones. I
yeah.
guess I could say Samar is maybe one of my top five, but more or less those thrillers of the mental state or the psychological thrillers. But most definitely the folklores are my favorite because again. those are the really unknowns, right? You really
Yeah.
don't know what has been going on. I think I watched one recently streaming. It's called Scratch, and it was like something where a Japanese or Korean or Vietnamese demon was taking over her body. She was scratching her head because there was something in her body. So I like the idea of the folklore because that's the real unknown, right? Because
Yeah.
different cultures have different fears, have different demons, and who's to say that they're not real, right?
Right.
So that's really what my jam is, those folklore type of
Nice.
those psychological thrillers. Yeah,
Yeah.
most
Well,
definitely.
I mean, folklore, legend, I mean, no matter what it is, they're all always birthed in some form of reality. Whether they perceive something different or something happened that was, had evolved over the years through people telling stories or whatever. So yeah, I agree. Yeah, the folklore stuff, it always seems to have a little grain of truth to it in
Yeah.
a way, or oh my goodness, what if this was real? And I'll be honest, Japanese horror movies are creepy as hell. I
Yeah.
mean, they do a great job of really kind of getting in your head.
Yeah,
Um,
they do. And it's
yeah,
always based on a lesson as well. So
yeah,
like greed or envy or you know what I mean? So it's always has some kind of story or kind of basis to it. Whereas like, if you're too much of a glutton, then this demon will come and possess your body. So it
yeah,
has some kind of, like you said, the truth to it because it's based on human emotions and human reality, you know what I mean, as far as how we operate and how we think too. So I think that's also kind of what hits home with those, is because it always has some sort of lesson behind it as well.
nice. So if a movie were to actually like truly scare you, get to you, it would have to have maybe kind of like that humanity, that morality to it, and that's what would probably maybe keep you up at night for a little while longer.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
maybe
like
leave the
how you
light
said
on.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Yeah, it has to have some sort of basis of, this is human emotion. This is human reality, as far as how we think and those negative things that we think in the back of our head, that we don't want anyone to know and how it can consume us as a person. So,
wow. Yeah. No, I mean, that's great. And I love hearing that because I mean, one of the things that Vagrant Fear strives to do is mesh the horror with the humanity. And we're not trying to make statements on anything. And I'll be honest, the world can be scary enough as it is, but mixing those elements, it, like you said, it does give you that extra push because if you're watching something that's grounded in that, you can relate more to the characters, or either you've gone through something similar or felt it, or somebody who has. So it gives you that much more connection and that much more fear as opposed to Terrifier or something.
oh
Which,
gosh,
sorry,
let's not talk about Terrifier.
no, you know what? I've not seen them. I don't care to see them. Similar to you, I am not a fan of gore. It's not like well, I don't know, maybe about the third one, but I don't think it would be a movie where I would go get physically ill at. But 2 hours of it, I just kind of get bored. I mean,
Yeah,
there's nothing there. I'm not opposed to gore if it's necessary or if it enhances, but if it's 2 hours of body parts, then I don't care.
yeah, I'm
I
I'm
don't
with you
care.
100% on that. Nope, it's
Yeah.
just so much you can take.
Yep. I give them credit.
Yep.
Whoever, the makers of those, they have done very well for themselves, and I am not disputing the the fandom and the success of those movies, but they didn't get my $10, so that's fine.
Right, there you go.
So,
There you go.
but yeah, so and as we're kind of drawing to a close here a little bit, I like your vantage point from this, because it's a lot of talk lately. I think it was with The Substance when that came out last year, 2 years ago, how people were saying that horror finally needed to be recognized for its creativity and its storytelling and everything, where so far as when it comes to award seasons and stuff like that, it's kind of washed over because it's the B movies, the easy stuff, the stuff that people think, oh, it's just horror, whatever. But they're really starting to have some solid stories in there, and if you haven't seen The Substance, I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but it is really good, a wonderful story. It can get a little messy in parts, but it doesn't detract. It's wonderful. Uh, Definitely a different style of story, but no,
Right.
I really, Bridget, I really appreciate you coming on and
Yeah,
taking this
thank
time to
you.
talk with me.
I appreciate it. I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
This is great. Yeah, I love having discussions like this. This is great.
Oh yeah, and we'll have many more. And with the club, I'm sure when we get together again, I'll see you down there. Um, but yeah, we keep training your kid right. You know, if he was 8 years old and he can make it through Tim Curry's It, that boy can. He's not nothing in this world's going to scare him.
Right,
My
exactly.
dad's in his 70s and he refuses. He has not watched that show since it aired originally, and he's just like, nope. Tim Curry is it. Nope, not watching that at all. He will turn the TV off even if he just glances at it. So nope.
But he has to remember the time warp too. So there's the other side
That's
of
true. Yes. Oh, he loves Tim Curry. He will watch Rocky Horror. That's the weird thing. My
that.
father loves Rocky Horror, but he will not watch the original It.
Yeah, some
Just
of those
because
movies will stick with you,
oh
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah. And
Mhm.
those are the good ones. The ones that you can just remember. And I love the fact how you watch stuff and you say it takes you back to your childhood. Memories like that are great, and it's amazing and wonderful that you're making those memories with your kid like you had when you were growing up. And that's that it I will say it, that's a good mom thing right there. That's a
Thank
good
you.
mom thing.
Thank
Even
you.
if you're
I
like you're
appreciate that.
wait, you bonded over Babadook, you bonded.
Yeah, that's
We'll
all
leave
that
it at
matters,
that.
right?
Exactly. All right. So all right, Bridget Robinson, everybody. Wonderful, wonderful discussion we had today. Thank you, Bridget, for joining us again. Thank you, all the cultists, for tuning in. Thank you, KHOI FM Radio, for sponsoring and putting us on the air. And continue to listen. We will have more discussions like this, as that's what we are, Vagrant Fear discussions. We talk about anything horror or fear related, no matter the topic, no matter what. We want to get that topic out there. We want to get that out to people. So I do want to say thank you again, Bridget. I really
Thank you.
appreciate you coming in. Um, and for the rest of you, keep listening, uh, and enjoy the rest of your well, just enjoy the rest of your existence, everybody. So from Vagrant Fear Productions, from my alter ego Gnarly, from KHOI FM, thank you, and everybody enjoy your evening. Have a good night. Goodbye.
Tonight's episode of Vagrant Fear Discussions is brought to you by Vagrant Fear Productions and KHOI 89.1. Your host was David Detlefs. Music included Day of Chaos and Dopplerette by Kevin MacLeod, Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license.